Not what I was hoping for. Not what we were all hoping for, right? A 1-1 draw away to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in the top of the table clash. Oh, where do I start? Look, the first thing I want to say is I do not agree with the majority of the online reaction to this result. Um, I'm talking mostly about the Arsenal online content creators that I kind of follow closely. I, I think there's been a bit too much of a negative reaction to this game. Look, I understand Chelsea were playing with 10 men for the best part of 55 minutes of that game. And you would like to think that Arsenal would have enough about them to take advantage of that extra man. But I think we have to give Chelsea a little bit of credit here, or maybe quite a bit of credit. I think that Chelsea played incredibly well. I always knew this was going to be an extremely difficult game. I knew that Chelsea were coming into this in a very good run of form, full of confidence, particularly after beating Barcelona midweek 3-0. And let's not kind of have it any other way. They are in second place. They are our nearest title rivals. And I think they're deserving of their position in the league. And so this was always going to be an incredibly difficult game, particularly when you factor in the fact that it comes off the back of or at the end of two incredibly demanding games in the North London derby against Tottenham and the midweek game against Bayern Munich. So I think sometimes we just have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and apply some logic and apply some context and then have a serious conversation about a match like this, because it's easy immediately after a match like this to just go all in and say this was 2 drop points and we should have won and not acceptable and not good enough and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, I thought Chelsea were very good value today. I think they started incredibly well. They were on the front foot. They were pressing aggressively. They were being physical. And I just thought they looked really good, and we were off it. We by no means were we up to speed today. I think throughout the whole game, the team in general struggled to get a foothold and some control on this game, which was really disappointing, if I'm honest. I don't think anyone particularly shone from Arsenal today, which is a shame, because in these big games you need a couple of players at least to kind of stand out and make a mark. And I don't think anyone particularly did that today, which is disappointing. I think the red card was 100% a red card. I know this was the whole Caicedo-Rice battle that everyone would be waiting for. But for me, this is why I would never kind of swap Rice for anyone, because I think Caicedo, for as good as he is a bit of a hothead. And I think he has these challenges in him. And ultimately, he cost his team today. We go into the second half and you could tell immediately that Chelsea's game plan was to not only try and get an Arsenal player sent off to level the numbers up, but to really kind of master those dark arts and kind of squeeze out any chance they could of kind of breaking up play and wasting time and breaking any kind of rhythm that we were looking to build. If you look at Chelsea's goal, it all started off the back of João Pedro falling to the floor like he'd been shot in the face from what was a completely fair 50-50 ball in the air challenge from Nketiah, and was never a foul. But all he was trying to do in that moment was try and get Nketiah sent off. And then from there, the free kick's taken, we concede a corner and we concede the goal. And it was just the worst time to concede a goal, because you were expecting Arsenal to kind of assert a level of dominance at the beginning of that second half and try and control that second half and ultimately win the game. But I think giving Chelsea that early lead in the second half meant that they had the ability to kind of just sit back and kind of really not go for it, because they were in front. And I think it allowed them to kind of just take control of that second half instead of allowing Arsenal to try and take control. And fair play to Arsenal, despite not playing well, we did manage to get the equaliser. I think Saka, it was a great cross from Saka, a great finish from Marino. And so we get back to 1-1. You think, right, we've got 30 minutes to play. Let's go on and find the winner. And ultimately, we couldn't do it. As I said, I think this was not our finest day. And I think if I am trying to be half glass full here, I think what I'm really proud about in this Arsenal team, particularly this season, is that, if we don't play well, we're still able to get a result. And I think today was a good example of us not playing anywhere near the level that we can play in a very hostile environment against a very good team full of confidence. And yes, they were with 10 men, but we were able to at least get out of there with a point, which I think all in all was probably the fair result. And look, if you look at it with a bit of perspective, we're still 6 points in front of Chelsea. We're still 5 points in front of Man City. And again, as I said in my previous video, yes, this was an opportunity for us to stretch our lead to 9 points, but I don't sit here and feel overly panicked by the thought of Man City being 5 points off us. I do not believe, and I could be wrong, but I do not believe Man City is the same Man City of 2-3 years ago. I don't think they're going to go on a 15-game unbeaten run. I do think they will lose more games. And so that's where a lot of my confidence comes from. But more than that, I have confidence in the team. I think we are a different team this year. I think there's a different mentality. I think there's a different hunger. We've obviously got the squad to deal with all the injuries that we've been dealing with. And so I have no doubt that we'll just get back on the bike, so to speak, and approach that game against Brentford midweek, looking to get 3 points and kind of continue the run. Let's not kind of beat around the bush. Not having Saliba and Gabriel for this game is a massive loss. I don't care what anyone says. I know any rival fan watching this is going to say, well, you've got 2 amazing centre-backs to come in and replace those 2. But at the end of the day, we're talking about the best centre-back partnership in world football. And so to rip them out of your team for a match of this nature is going to have a negative impact on any team. And as much as I think Nketiah and Mosquera have had an unbelievable start to their Arsenal careers, and I think they've both played individually very well over the course of the season when they've been called upon, you're talking about 2 brand new players to the Premier League, to Arsenal, who have never played together before to come into a match like this. And I do think one of Arsenal's biggest strengths is their ability to be able to play out from the back and have that confidence across that back 4 to kind of pass it around, wait for the opening, and then kind of set an attack from the bottom of our defense. And I think today you could see there was some nerves with Mosquera and Nketiah, and I don't think they had that same connection that obviously Gabriel and Saliba do. And I think that did have a bit of a negative impact on the way we probably wanted to play in this game. But again, at the end of the day, I think all in all, they did not a bad job. I think the ref was appalling. I think he got his yellow card out way too early in this game. This is a London derby. This is going to be a highly contested, heated match. And him bringing out those yellow cards as early as he did, just for me, ruined the spectacle of the game, because as soon as you've got 5, 6, 7 players on yellow cards, they have to immediately change the way they approach the game. So, for example, Zubimendi in the 6, he gets a yellow card within like the first 10 minutes of the game. He can no longer play on the front foot, be aggressive, and try and kind of, command that 6 position, because he knows that if he makes one mistake, then he's off. And so I think by half time, we had pretty much our whole backline on yellow cards, bar Timber. So I think the referee was poor. I think he was too quick to give yellow cards to both teams. But yeah, I just think at the end of the day, this wasn't a great performance. And look, again, more context. We had no striker for this game, and I know everyone's going to laugh at me and say you're just making excuses. But both centre backs out, still no Odegaard. Trossard on the left for me was a big miss. I think Trossard, although a lot of Arsenal fans have had debates around Trossard and whether he's good enough to be our starting left winger, I think he's arguably been one of our best attacking players this season. And I think having him on the left today would have been exactly what we needed, because he's just got that composure and that calmness and that skill in terms of just being able to kind of slow the game down, pick the right pass, lift his head up, create a bit of magic. Whereas I thought today Martinelli looked really bad. He looked really off it, which is what you'd expect given he's been out for so long. But I thought Martinelli, apart from that one shot in the first half, did absolutely nothing. I thought Madueke was really poor when he came on. I was really disappointed with Eze and Saka today. I know Saka had the cross for the goal, but apart from that, I thought his decision-making was poor. I thought his general play was poor. I think the only player who really kind of stood up to some degree was Rice. But even by his standards, I think he was a little bit short. And so, yeah, it was just one of those games where, you've come off two massive demanding games against Tottenham and Bayern Munich. And I think this game against Chelsea was probably just one step too many for the team. And so it happens, it happens. We are not going to be perfect all season. We are not just going to blitz every team. We are not going to win every game. So this reaction around 2 points dropped and we were terrible and we should have definitely won against 10 men. I can understand it, but I don't agree with it. I think at the end of the day, take a step back, apply some perspective, apply some logic, and I think you can see that that's not the worst result in the world. And as I said, this Arsenal team is built different this season, and there might be a lot of outside noise around this drop 2 points, but I think the Arsenal team will be quietly okay with this point, and they'll be already looking forward to the next game and trying to get back on a bit of a winning run. But as I said, I think all in all, a draw was a fair result. I thought Chelsea did very well considering the fact that they did go down to 10 men in the first half. I think they were still dangerous on the attack, on the counter-attack. I think they looked as threats throughout. And I guess my only disappointment is just the fact that I think we didn't take control of that game the way we should have, given that we had the extra man advantage. And I think that just came down to us just not quite being at the races today. And obviously missing a couple of key personnel. So look, the positives are we got a point in a tricky game. We've maintained our lead at the top. We've got players coming back. It was great to see Jesus on the bench, Gyökeres on the bench. I really hope this Saliba injury was just purely precautionary, because I think this Christmas period is going to be huge. It's going to be really important that we have a good Christmas period, and it does look like Gabriel's going to be out for most of it. So if we were to have both Gabriel and Saliba out for pretty much the whole of December, that would be a real worry. So I can probably deal with Saliba missing the Brentford game on Wednesday, but I would really like to see him back for the Villa game, which is going to be another incredibly difficult away match. So yeah, fingers crossed that's not too bad. But apart from that, I would just say to all Arsenal fans out there, just hold the faith. Like this team's moving in the right direction, and I think we can all see that. So just have a little bit more faith, have a little bit more belief, and just understand that these type of results are going to pop up now and again. It's about how we react. But most importantly, I don't believe the likes of Chelsea, City, and Liverpool have got it in them to really threaten us the whole way through the season. I could be completely wrong, and I could look like a complete idiot by the end of this season. But from what I'm seeing at the moment, I don't see them pushing us all the way to the end. So it's just about maintaining what we're doing and trying to avoid too many slip-ups, in my opinion. So yeah, we rest, we recover, and we get ready for Wednesday. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Very keen to know whether you agree with me or whether you think I am being too positive on this one. Let me know what you think. All right, guys, see you on the next one. Bye.